That means if the solution, that is stage 2, is agree on the direction of the solution. That means once the problem is identified and you say that if we work like this and we remove this part, this part, this part, that means if I remove these 3-4 parts of a problem, do you think the problem is solved? That means the direction that we are going to take has to be decided. Nothing else, but it's called the criteria when we consider the problem solved. That means we should also be clear that if I'm trying to solve the problem, I don't create any other problem also. Or I am very clear in saying that 1, 2, 3 things when removed will cause your problem to disappear. That means I have agreed also that removal of problem means that you are relieved of these 4 symptoms. That means you agree the direction in which to go about solving the problem. Only after then you go to the third level, which is called agree that your solution solves the problem. That means now you are trying to present your solution which actually would lead to removal of the symptoms which are present, and hence the problem will be solved. Only when you actually structure your offer in these 4 stages that you can get a buy-in and your offer will be accepted. However, also note that the way in which you present these are governed by the psychology of the brain. What are you going to use inside this offer? What words are you going to use? What you are not going to say will then determine the effectiveness of your presentation. Combining the psychology of the brain with its core deciding what to do and the structured 4-step path to getting a buy-in will help us develop a offer which cannot be refused. It is often that we find offers falling flat because many times we have jumped to the solution even before we have fully identified, isolated the problem and got a consent from the listener that this exactly is his problem. If it is not his problem, then the solution is not for the person. However, it is often a mistake made that after we have identified the problem, we jump to providing a solution. You have to agree in the direction in which the solution is going to be used. That means how is this problem going to be removed? And if those symptoms are removed, is the problem going to be solved? And then you come to the last part, which is called the close, the 4th stage, and you then spell out exactly what you're going to do and what your solution is going to entail and what efforts will be required to cause that change. 4 stages. First, agree on the problem. Stage number 2, agree on the direction of the solution. 3, agree the solution solves the problem. And then close. This is now the offer stage done. Having understood the guidelines and the broad outlook, let's detail out the process. Let us say that now you have to go and make an offer. You understand the psychology of the brain, and now you've been given the 4-stage guidelines how to have a buy-in. Let's begin with stage number 1. We need now to get an agreement on the problem. That means agree on the problem, number 1. How do you go about doing this? You make a presentation and you walked inside a room where everyone is sitting. Now, the moment you enter, what are you entering with? You know very less about the customer, but you know a lot about yourself. And when you begin with the presentation, usually people land up talking a lot about themselves. We are this company, we have been this big and this. It actually means blah, 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 blah. Why? Because the brain is self-centered. You are not talking about the customer. You're talking about yourself. So a nice way of going about presenting an offer to a customer is you start by saying that there are certain supplier practices which are done by us as well as our competition, and they are the ones which are causing a lot of pain to you. These practices have a negative impact on our customers, which is you. Suddenly you've developed a contrast. So now the brain is listening. You go say that these are the supplier practices within our industry which is causing so much or XYZ effects on our customers. And these are nothing but standard practices that the industry does. So suddenly you have made a statement which says these supplier practices are now causing these problems. You can say we also do the same. So even because of our current practices, this is what our buyers are suffering from. And these are all industry practices. When we say industry practices, that means these practices are born by the buyer-supplier interaction. You can't say it is you who has created that, because the buyer himself has decided to purchase from you based on those conditions. And most likely it is he who has forced those conditions on you. And most likely it is he who has forced those conditions on you. Taking the price volume curve as an example, he wanted low price. Your cost calculation said that if the volumes go up, maybe you will save on XY cost and hence the average cost will go down. And if that makes your buyer land up with huge amount of obsolescence with his current inventory levels, you can say just because I discounted the price, you had to buy in bulk and that led to this negative impact on you. And that could mean many other things. Obsolescence is a big problem. Not only that, there could be stock out also. But anyway, let's live with what we're discussing right now. Now, you have suddenly got the person's attention. Now, to get to the old brain, because that is what is going to decide which part of the brain is going to take a decision on, you say the amount of pain these practices create inside you. A pain inside your customer. It is not to say that companies suffer with this, companies suffer with this, and quote an example of IBM or quote an example of Dell. No. Remove everything. Just focus it that this is what you are going to be suffering with if your suppliers keep on with these practices. it is this pain that core is trying to do away with. Is the pain. So you try to build pain around the practices. And after you have got the pain done, make sure you add a bit of emotion inside, because that is what it responds to, right? Emotions. So you can say that you have to make sure that you store so much and you transport so much. But then after that you got to say what other things get attached because of this emotion. And don't confuse the person after that. The negative impacts of this pain have to be simple, precise, and tangible. Stage 1, agreeing on the problem, always should have all these elements inside. So the 6 stimuli have to be put to use when you get an agreement on the problem from the customer. So always agree that do not talk in third person. So if you go inside, for example, it's an electronics component manufacturer supplying to OEM. This electronics component supplier is trying to make an offer to his current customer. So he walks up to the customer and he says, "Sir, you buy from me as well as from China. I am closer to you. I deliver you on time with very good quality, as and when you want also sometimes. Why don't you give me more share of business? And why don't you give me some more price for my excellent services? Because the material that you're getting from China takes 3 months to arrive, and in case there's a disturbance in supply or there's a variation in demand, you're not able to adjust your inventory accordingly. And here I am close to you. I'll be able to supply you whenever you want. And hence you will be benefited." Now the customer will ask, "How will I be benefited?" "Sir, I can deliver you whenever you want." He says, "You do that already. I have given you daily schedule, and daily schedule you deliver." So yes, so I can give you more share of business and get less from China if you give me a price which is lower than your current price. Electronics component supplier is trying to make an offer to his current customer. So he walks up to the customer and he says, "Sir, you buy from me as well as from China. I am closer to you. I deliver you on time with very good quality, as and when you want also sometimes. Why don't you give me more share of business? And why don't you give me some more price for my excellent services? Because the material that you're getting from China takes 3 months to arrive, and in case there's a disturbance in supply or there's a variation in demand, you're not able to adjust your inventory accordingly. And here I am close to you. I'll be able to supply you whenever you want." And hence you will be benefited. Now the customer will ask, "How will I be benefited?" "Sir, I can deliver you whenever you want." He says, "You do that already. I have given you daily schedule, and daily schedule you deliver." So yes, so I can give you more share of business and get less from China if you give me a price which is lower than your current price. So in trying to solve a problem which he thought was a problem for his customer, he landed up getting a pressure of the customer asking him to reduce the price. He thought that the bulk of inventory which needs to be bought every time from China spikes the average inventory levels in his company to a very high level. And then over a period of time the consumption takes place. Secondly, if there's a problem with this big bulk, he suddenly will run out of material to produce, and then puts pressure on the other supplier, which is him, to increase the output. So this is a huge problem because his production gets disturbed. And however, China may be giving you low price per component, but if you add all the other services, transportation, inventory time, and the interest rates and currency rates fluctuating here, there, and everything that needs to be paid, it actually turns out to be 7 to 8% more expensive than the Indian supplier. He has done all this calculation. But even before he could identify the problem with the customer, he is offered a solution. The solution is, sir, I will deliver every day. He thinks that it is an extra feature of his services which is going to get him the order. But this is not a solution to a problem. In fact, there is no agreement to what problem is the customer facing. So first, he should have discussed, sir, what is it that is making you so nervous, and why is it that we get a lot of urgent orders from you? And why is it that you are carrying so much of inventory? And then translating into, if you're carrying so much of inventory, sir, I'm sure it must be impacting on your working capital. For that matter, sir, you take from me and you give me a 60-day credit period, and you take from China, you still give China a 60-day credit period, out of which the material is on the ship for 45 days. There are so many elements of this offer which, when put in the correct sequence, will be able to be converted into a problem statement. That means we should agree that what is the practice of buying from China creating in the operations of the buyer, and what is my practice creating in the eyes of the buyer.